Hello, these notes are for section 10.2D, factoring trinomials. I'm going to use a different format than the page in your workbook, and so go ahead and take out some binder sheet of paper, and you can take some notes on that, and then you can put it in your workbook after you're done. So go ahead and stop the video and grab the binder sheet of paper, and we can get started. So these steps in factoring trinomials, I'm going to use something called the Kim trick. The way that the other video uses this method is they call it a guess and check method. And so if you listen to this and you don't like the Kim trick, then you can go to the other video and you can look at the guess and check method. But this method is called a Kim trick. The Kim trick can only be used with a trinomial. So as long as you have a trinomial, you can factor using the Kim trick. So I'm going to start with an example and go through the steps on how to use the Kim trick. So they will ask us to factor. So we have an example, x squared minus 2x minus 8 is our first example. So using the Kim trick, the first thing that you do is take your leading coefficient, which is the number in front of your x squared, and multiply it by the last term. Now in this example, your leading coefficient is 1, so if you multiply the last term by 1, you still have the same number. So it doesn't really matter that you actually need to do that trick, that step in the trick. So once you've done that, the next step in the Kim trick is you're going to try to figure out some number times some number will give you your last term, and then the same two numbers, when you add together, you get your middle term. So it's kind of like a puzzle. You're trying to figure out some number times some number, you get the last term, and the same two numbers when you add together, you get -2. So writing down the factors for 8 might be helpful, like 1 times 8 gives us 8, 4 times 2 gives us 8, and that's it. So 4 and 2 would work in this case, because if I take -4 plus 2, that gives me -2, and I take -4 times 2, that would give me -8. So I found the right combination. So to factor this, you would have 2 sets of parentheses, and whatever letter is here, that goes here and here. And then the number here would be -4 because it's -4. And then the 2 would be +2 because it's +2. And these are the factors for x squared minus 2x minus 8. Now, you could also check to make sure that's true by foiling. We've already learned how to foil, so I'll just do this quickly. So if you foil this, you should get back your original trinomial that you started with, x squared minus 2x minus 8, which is the original trinomial that you started with. So you know your factors are true. Okay, so that's using the Kim trick. So let's try another example using the same method. So with example 2, we're going to look at x squared plus 7xy minus 8y squared. Okay, so looking at this example here, our leading coefficient is 1 again. So we take that 1 and we multiply it by the last term. So again, it still gives us the same thing. Our next step in our Kim trick is we take some number times some number gives us our ending, and the same two numbers, when I add together, I get 7. So here's 8 again. So if I need to write those out, I could write those out like so. So looking at that 1 and 8, if I would take 1 and 8, if I subtract these two, I would get a positive 7. But then you have to think about, okay, who has to be negative to get a positive 7? And that would be the 1. So the 1 has to be negative. So negative 1 times 8 does give me negative 8. Negative 1 plus 8 gives me a positive 7. So I found the combination. So let's talk about this again. The factors, the x squared, so this would be x and x, minus 1, and then plus 8. Now the difference between this one and the one before is you have a y squared here. So what times what do we need to put there to get our y squared? So that would be y, and that would be y. And so when you have multiple letters, that's how we would place it in our factors. And so that would be our solution, our factors for that. So this is an example of factoring a trinomial using the Kim trick. So taking your leading coefficient, multiplying it by the last term, and then looking for these combinations. Something times something would give us our last term. Something plus something would give us our middle term, and these have to be the same. And then we write it out in 2 parentheses. Whatever letter is here first goes in here and here, and then the numbers we found go here and here. Now, it doesn't matter which numbers you put because you would get the same thing at the end. Hopefully this is helpful for you. We'll move on to the next section to talk about what happens when we have a leading coefficient other than 1.